Transcending the mother-child bond. History always repeats itself, generationally, for lifetimes. With Jupiter transiting Purnavasu, you have the opportunity to learn how to break old cycles and create new ones. Whatever nourished you before, if it has a form, you must learn to transcend it, to understand the deeper meaning of mental, emotional stability and security, and to align the mind with the heart. To break the cycle of karmic patterns is to master this life. To break the reincarnation cycle is to master the soul. Trust the soul to guide you. As Aditi brings you into the cosmic womb, you will be asked to find your pieces and welcome peace. It is time for the light to return. All right, hi beautiful souls, welcome back to the channel, Soul Awakening with Shantia. And it looks like we're going to be diving into the Purnavasu transit. So welcome to the Purnavasu deep dive, inspired by the 10-month transit that Jupiter is making through this Nakshatra. This transit started on August 13th, 2025 and will complete on June 13th, 2026. I created a short about this. This is an unusually long transit. Transits don't usually... I haven't seen it yet. But since I've started studying them, Jupiter will both move forward and retrograde in Purnavasu, which itself carries the theme of returning. All the more reason to highlight the lessons to be learned with this transit. So originally I intended to focus on just the transit for the video, and then I realized that I couldn't seem to do that for this video or any other videos I do deep dives on. So I thought, why not celebrate this Nakshatra and talk about Purnavasu as a whole. So this transit is particularly special because it is ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter is transiting through its own Nakshatra for 10 months. This is potent energy. It means that the energy gets to be expressed in more of a fullness, in a way that can be embraced or used. So it's going to be based off of your own individual free will and choice, how you use this energy. So in this video, we will be discussing the general themes of Jupiter and Purnavasu, how it relates to other transits during this period and feeds into the bigger collective themes. We will then dissect the Zodiac themes. For Purnavasu, we will break down the symbology, the deity rulership, and give evolved and devolved examples of well-known people with Moon in Purnavasu, an Ascendant in Purnavasu, and Jupiter in Purnavasu. I want to take a minute to thank these passionate astrologers and teachers for sharing their knowledge. Prashant Trivedi, Claire Nakti, I think it's Parisha. I want to say it like that, but I could be wrong. I apologize for that. Yazdi. We have Corey and YouTube channel Eye of the Veda. So all of these people have their own YouTube channels. Prashant Trivedi, you can find him at like Lotus Ocean. You can also find him on Instagram. If you Google him, he has his own website and you can find his other social media websites. But mainly I'm getting Prashant's information from his 27 Constellation books, which is pretty well known and popular by those who like to study astrology. Quick note before I get started, I want you guys to remember I'm not a technical astrologer. I both play and break rules. I don't even know if I really break the rules. I don't even know that I know the rules, to be honest. I don't know that I really believe in rules, considering energy is, amorphous, right? So my strength is pattern recognition and clairvoyance, in a sense where I tune into meditations and I kind of see things, or I just see dots. I see energies and I see how everything connects. So I see the dots to how everything connects. So my intention is that I hope to leave you inspired by the end of this video, equipped with knowledge you can use to help yourself. Let's get started. So the key themes of Jupiter and Purnavasu, but also mainly Purnavasu is going to be highlighting here, is first one is light. Light. So Jupiter, the guru, law, divine law, and the darkness remover, guru, with Purnavasu, the returner of the light, equals magnified work. So let's get to work, which leads to light expansion and a brightening energy. So in order for us to brighten up the light, this takes energy, this takes focus. This isn't, I think this is where we start misunderstanding what exaltations mean. When we all take an opportunity to really study people's charts, we'll start to see that even though a planet can express its energy in a much more expansive way, perhaps, particularly when it comes to Jupiter, it still is limited in the sense that depending on that person's individual free will choices and how they're working on themselves and doing their own inner work, this is going to determine the bigger unfolding of this energy. So we have here, so it's a brightener. It takes energy to redirect light. You have to focus it. Think about the sun. It's a very focused light. So Gemini brings us to mental stability when it comes to Purnavasu. And then Cancer is the part of Purnavasu that brings emotional awareness into our life. Jupiter in its own nakshatra can bring this energy of optimism. So optimism first starts with an idea, Gemini. Starts with an idea, a concept. It starts with mantras, throat chakra, mantras, reprogramming the subconscious before it becomes an action, right? So before we're stepping into a willingness to use our heart or become emotionally aware, first we're aligning with these new concepts and ideas on how we're going to approach them. We also have Purnavasu, which translates into becoming Vasu again. So we're going to break that down into the symbology around that word. So good again. So things becoming good again. This indicates that, or this implies that something wasn't good. So Purnavasu isn't just the good. It's the energy of coming from something that wasn't good. Then we also have travel. That's a theme with Purnavasu, movement, travel, arrow symbology we'll talk about later. We have creative oscillation. So I think it's Parisa. I need to hear her introduce her name a few times. But she talked about creative oscillation, where Purnavasu likes to be very creative with ideas and reinventive. So recycling, regeneration, reinventive. So that regeneration takes us to healing. It's a key theme in healing. In Purnavasu is healing. So this is the nakshatra of, supposed, maybe healers, spiritual teachers, teachers of hope, people who add hope. So we're all here to be teachers by the example that we lead in life. But by the end of the day, the way that we heal is first through healing ourselves. So this is a really good nakshatra on how to heal yourself. And then we have Aditi. Aditi is the cosmic mother. So you're going to see Aditi is the deity that rules Purnavasu. So with Aditi being the cosmic mother, motherhood is going to be a common theme for this nakshatra. Overall, Jupiter in Purnavasu is teaching us to break free of cycles, do it better this time around. So good again. Good again also implies that something was good before, right? So it was good before and then it got bad or sour and then it became good again. So this is about returning back to an idea or concept and seeing it from a different perspective, recycling, reshaping it or reinventing it into something better. Through applying the learnings, we have the opportunity to rise into higher frequencies that increase our ability to flow with abundance. So Jupiter is also connected to abundance. We'll talk about that more later. Sorry about that. But yes, Jupiter is connected to abundance, thanks to that rulership with Aditi. Purnavasu does well in Jupiter, Mercury, Moon, and Venus, supposedly, and is challenged by Mars, Sun, and Saturn. Now, I don't believe in a bad placement necessarily, but sometimes energy is challenged. But depending on the individual, some know how to turn it into a superpower. Some people are overtaken by it. So the challenges Purnavasu offers is that when it's in balance, it's not ideal for redundance. So repeating and doing something over and over and over again. It wants some sort of progress. It wants to know that it did something a little bit better. It's not good with rigid routines or permanent situations that doesn't allow for expansive growth. This is a time of constant movement and reinvention for the sake of personal growth. So the examples that I will be talking about in this presentation is Michio Kushi, George Harrison, Kurt Cobain, Frida Kahlo, Hugo Weaving, Robert De Niro, Mara Wilson. Gotta respell Robert De Niro's name right. Apologize for that. Tyra Banks, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Drew Barrymore. My expansive list here, I have the specific placements they have. Some of them had multiple placements there, which is even better. But we also have Audrey Hepburn, Keanu Reeves, Bob Marley, Prashant Trivedi, Whitney Houston, Marilyn Monroe, Angelina Jolie, Prince William, Frank Sinatra, Donald Trump, and Karl Marx. So these are all people, other than who I've added today. I've added Robert De Niro, Michio Kushi to this list, and Drew Barrymore. These are all people who I've talked about in my Sun series. So this is a snapshot. I'm shooting this on the 29th, but this is the snapshot on the 26th, as you can see. And we zoom in here. I got the degrees. I screenshotted this from Cosmic Insights app that I like to use since it's on my phone, nice and convenient. But we got Jupiter at 27 degrees. So when Jupiter is doing this transit, let's talk about the specific degrees here. So it's transiting, Purnavasu goes from 20 degrees Gemini to 3 degrees, 20 minutes Cancer. So it doesn't have that much, it doesn't have that much of degrees, it has more degrees in the Gemini side than it does in the Cancer side. So it's interesting to note that Jupiter is exalted in that Cancer side. I gotta look up exactly what degree it is, but I'm guessing it's probably around 3 degrees. So let's look at some of the transit themes we got going on. So right now we got Rahu in Aquarius. So Saturn is the dispositor for Rahu. I got my arrows here. Jupiter is the dispositor for Saturn. Mercury is the dispositor for... Sorry, I forgot to change that. So everything's going back down to Mercury. And in the Jupiter and Arja video, I was pointing to this emphasis because that Rahu is going all the way down the line and it's connecting to Mercury there. And it was definitely the energy. Rahu and Mercury is the energy of Ardra. So we're still getting that influence of that Ardra energy. A lot of heightened mental activity, especially during this period. A lot of media information. This is an important time of discernment for everyone. But wherever Mercury is transiting, it's going to be impacting Jupiter. But Jupiter, besides Saturn, Jupiter is the largest graha besides Sun. So you got Sun, and then you got Jupiter after that, and you got Saturn. So no matter what, wherever Jupiter is transiting, it offers, to me, people are always expressing themselves in a very pessimistic way when it comes to their life on Earth and how they're living and experiencing life. But when you think about Jupiter and it being one of the bigger planets, right? Even Sun too. The bigger planets are the ones that are about light. So why are we so afraid of the dark when there's so much light in this world? And that's what Jupiter is a reminder of, is that grace, that divine knowledge and insight. And that is how Jupiter is meant to be used by us. So Purnavasu is ruled by Jupiter, Mercury, and then Moon. So in the Gemini side, it definitely has a strong Mercurian influence. And then on the Cancer side, it has that Moon influence. But the conjunction of Jupiter, Mercury, and Moon together would be a formation of this energy and be celebrating this energy. And I often find that energy is interchangeable. For example, if you had a Jupiter-Mercury conjunction sitting in maybe like the 4th house or something, it could probably give a very similar energy dynamic to Jupiter, Mercury. So Mercury and Moon are both connected to the mind. Jupiter is like the teacher. So this is a highly intelligent, expressive sign or placement for this sign. So Purnavasu, the returner of the light, is influencing Saturn. So Saturn is reflective of karma, time, and collective shifts. And Rahu is like the masses, the world, the yang. So Rahu is sort of the quicker collective shifts we're all going through, the theme that we're focusing at that point in time. So all of this is connected. So we have this energy of light, we have time, karma, cycles, and then we have Rahu. So this shows you that right now we're going through some pivotal, necessary collective shifts. Now, the world's always changing, but the reason why this dynamic is particularly interesting is because it's almost like we're being forced to change, forced to face the uncomfortable. I wouldn't even say force is the right word, but pressured to change, pressured to change our ways, to do things differently. Whereas before, we could get away with just maybe being lazy or procrastinating. Well, this is the time where everyone's feeling that pressure. And then we also have Pluto is in Capricorn right now, and so Saturn is its expositor. So again, it goes back down the line of Saturn, Jupiter, and Mercury. So Pluto, a collective planet, outer planet, is definitely being affected by these shifts as well. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about some of the collective themes. So Rahu in Aquarius with Pluto in Capricorn, Saturn in Pisces, Jupiter in Purnavasu, bringing that energy. Gemini, Cancer, Mercury and Moon. We have Mercury in Virgo. We got Pluto, Rahu, Saturn, and Jupiter. So this is karmic law and order and pressured maturity. This energy is designed to create a pressure cooker so that one becomes a law-abiding citizen of the matrix or of the divine. So that's where you are given the choice. Very stark difference. These energies can create extreme swings from old Saturn to new Rahu. Thus, a major theme around generational shifts, especially with belief structures. So Jupiter is our belief structures. Our belief structures are going through many different changes right now. And, as it's been transiting through the sign of Gemini, we're sifting through a lot of ideas. And people are either double downing on their old beliefs, or people are double downing on embracing new beliefs. So that's where the polarizing energy is being created. So Saturn is that systematic. Pluto, Uranus is restructuring. So systematic restructuring is happening. You can call this a new world order, one of the many. So that means that the collective energies are shifting dramatically, right? Very much like the ocean. Saturn, Pisces. So new world order. So energy is essentially finding a new form of expression. Nothing dangerous. We're always granted grace, divine protection in these shifts. You need not worry. It's about learning how to handle it to the best of your abilities. Let's talk about some of the zodiac themes. So you got Gemini, Cancer here. So Gemini is mental stability. That's what Purnavasu is about in Gemini. Mental stability. Cancer, emotional awareness. So Gemini is our intellect, thoughts, ideas, communication, skills, versatility, expression, interaction, engagement, movement, travel. So because Purnavasu is reflective of the final degrees of Gemini, this is where one is mastering their intellect and stabilizing ideas to serve a higher purpose. So you're mastering your intellect, you're stabilizing ideas to serve a higher purpose. So it's not just about those initial ideas where we're just kind of exploring with curiosity. Well, now the ideas are kind of serious. Now we're double downing on the ideas that work. So that initial part of Gemini energies, we're exploring. We're curious about how something works. Rahu's, we're getting revolutionary new insights and ideas. With the Ardra. And then Purnavasu. So the first one is Mrigashira. And then after that, you're getting that Ardra energy. So revolutionary ideas, futuristic ideas, Rahu. And then after that comes Jupiter's Nakshatra, which is wise. Wise, what works, what truly works with the system for yourself, for your highest good, hopefully, or humanity's highest good, which your highest good, if it's truly in your highest good, it should be in honor of humanity's highest good too. Cancer is our emotions, energy of emotions, mother, home, family, connection, safety, stability, security. So we're entering into the first degrees of Cancer. We're stepping into emotional awareness. This is where one becomes emotionally aware. When I think certain thoughts, it makes me feel a certain way. And that motivates me to do certain things. So now we're becoming emotionally aware. These people around me aren't just random family members. These are people I care about. I have a bond with them. My mother is her own person. Or I have a mother and I want to be around her because I feel connected to her. So we got connection, safety, stability, security, right? So one becomes emotionally aware and notices how thoughts influence emotions. So these could be sort of innocent or pure emotions or explosive emotions because it's experimental, right? Initially, when that baby is feeling its emotions for the first time, usually one of those is sadness, right? Or frustration, where it's crying or it's uncomfortable. So the first thing babies know how to do for sure, especially with that Ardra energies, they know how to cry. They know how to cry. And that Cancer is where they're starting to realize, I feel things in my body. I feel a lot of things. Some days I'm happy, some days I'm sad. I feel things. Cancer energy is also that nurturing parent energy, the mother-child relationship dynamic. So it could be a parent or a mother-child relationship dynamic. Cancer energy could make one, in this nakshatra, overprotective, protective, or it could put a focus on neglect around the mother. So it's like either your mother is there supporting you or your mother's not there. And I saw both themes for this nakshatra. All right, let's talk about Purnavasu Symbology. So Ardra first prepares Purnavasu. So Ardra is the storm, right? It's this it's like a mental, emotional, heightened awareness of like things going on, Ardra. And then after the storm is the afterstorm. So it's the calm after the storm. Storm starts to fade away. That's Purnavasu. So the rulership, we talked about this, is Jupiter with the added support of Mercury and Moon behind it. So this connects us to, with that rulership, an expansive mind, a willingness to learn. This is where someone is called to learn from their mistakes. Can make one quite scholarly, a writer or an avid reader. Can make them quite perceptive and a counselor. So both Mercury and Moon are the mind. So Mercury is more of the intellectual mind, and Moon is just the mind, the perception mind. So you're born with a certain perception of life. But your intellect is the thing that's sorting through how you're perceiving and receiving all of this information with that moon. So Purnavasu translates into becoming Vasu again, good again, wealthy again. This is where the darkness goes to light, which reminds me of the Six of Swords. So this means healing, transmutation, renewal, first light after the storm. This is where one gets rid of the negative energy. They make sure a Purnavasu native wants to go in there and try to get rid of that negative energy if they can. They're inclined to, they're supposed to, because they're supposed to search for the light. They can't stay in the dark. They have to find the light. That's part of their dharma, regardless of what placement is there. So this is the light of hope, returning to the light stronger. So we're not just returning to the light, we're returning to the light stronger. Restoration. So it reminds me of like when someone restores old antiques or a house, making it beautiful again. They shine that silver. So the pure in Purnavasu makes me think of purification, purify, or filtering out. Purna translates into full, complete, or perfect. So when people are using that Purna in Sanskrit, they're trying to put this focus on something being perfect or full or complete or beautiful, essentially. We have here nav, Purnav. So that makes me think of navigation. Navigation takes me to traveling, navigation. And then we got Vasu, which in Sanskrit means dweller, wealthy, excellent, light, or prosperity. It looks like I wrote property, but it's supposed to be prosperity. Purnavasu. So I just thought it'd be fun to break down the words just from my own lens, and then also share the actual translation. So Purna, full, complete, perfect, and then we got Vasu, which means excellent. So it's perfect excellence. It's like, how good can... It's a very benevolent focus nakshatra. So one receives good karma from their previous actions, especially with this nakshatra. So some of the other symbology for Purnavasu is arrows. So the arrows are supposed to represent the divine astras or the weapons. So this takes us to repetition, recycle, returning safely home after fulfilling a mission, moving, striving, objective, travel, migration, weapons, inherently fierce. Yeah, so weapons take me to this energy of inherently fierce. So there's a fierceness about Purnavasu. It's focused. If you think of an arrow, it's focused. The arrow is designed to hit its target. And it's designed to be brave, bravely hit its target. So the arrow or the archer has single focus. It could be a perfectionist, optimism after learning a lesson from the first attempt. So this is someone who tries to perfect their ability to hit the target. This also connects us to redoing things, regeneration, endless beginnings. We have a connection to the Ramayana. I'll speak about that shortly. So Purnavasu also takes place on all planes of existence, the mental, physical, emotional, astral. And this is where we're learning how to create harmony on all planes of existence. We're learning how to create harmony within ourselves. So this transit is going to be a beautiful lesson in how do I create harmony within myself? What do I have to do? What do I have to do to create that? This is a Deva root nakshatra, and it's a leveled nakshatra. So again, it brings us to that energy of finding balance, harmony within ourselves. Deva means like God. Like God is like ruled nakshatra. So it's supposed to be divinely directed with this energy. So in the Ramayana, I talked about this in my Saturn in Pisces Part 2 video. In the Ramayana, Sita, wife of the exiled prince Rama, is abducted by the demon king Ravana and held captive in Lanka. But Sita is ultimately rescued by Rama and his monkey army led by Hanuman after a fierce battle. Rama used arrows that returned to his quiver, ready at a moment's notice for their next assignments. So these arrows represent decisive force against evil. So in The Little Princess, that's where I got my reference. I remember watching that when I was a kid. Came out in the 90s. And I think it was in the intro part, but also Sarah, the main protagonist of the story, she was telling a story about Rama and Sita because she had grown up in India, hearing these mythical stories and believing in magic. And essentially, Sita and Rama were in love. They were in some sort of, looked like a Garden of Eve of some sort, or the Garden of Eden. And Sita said she was pointing at the deer and she wanted the deer. It was a golden deer. And so Rama decided to go and shoot his arrow at the deer. And I think it might have missed. He went to go approach it, but it turns out that that deer was actually Demon King. So that deer, that golden deer, was actually the Demon King Ravana. And so the deer went ahead and kidnapped his wife and took him away. And I thought at first that the arrow was I thought he attempted to get his wife back and then it didn't work and then he attempted again. But actually, no, it was just supposed to be signified for the arrows in general and him shooting his arrows. As in the repetition of Purnavasu. But I thought it was really cool reference because in the movie, Rama drew a circle around Sita, I think using his arrow, and that circle was supposed to represent divine protection. And I feel like that's what I'm getting from this energy of Purnavasu, with that returning again. We create divine protection, and I've learned this from Source, we create divine protection through rising to higher states of consciousness. And this is something that takes gradual process over a long period of time. So that's what the human experience is for us to elevate in our consciousness. And every person's at a different level of consciousness in each lifetime. That's why some of us, seems like we just come into this lifetime knowing things. We're like, I don't know how I know this. I don't know how I know to stay away from this and how to choose this. But for something inside of me tells me to do that. That's what the divine protection is. And that's what Jupiter and Purnavasu is offering you. It's like, okay, break the cycles, because when you stay stuck in the karmic cycles, you become more vulnerable to the world, right? And the matrix system, which consumes you. So what you consume consumes you. If you consume the programming of the matrix system, it controls you. If you choose to absolve it through rising to higher states of consciousness and detaching and allowing your ego to dissolve and whatnot, then you're going to be divinely protected just by the energy that you attract, because you're starting to consume that divine light instead of that false light. The false light doesn't nourish you. It seems like it's nourishing you, but it's deceptive. So again, the arrows represent decisive force against evil. Now let's talk about the mythology of Purnavasu connected to Aditi. So Aditi is the mother of the gods, in contrast to her sister Diti, who is the mother of the demons. So Aditi provides safety and abundance. This is the general, statement or phrase you can associate with Aditi. She provides safety and abundance. The symbology tech connected to her is the cosmic wound, which is essentially space, or the universe, or the cosmic matrix, also known as the divine matrix, not to be confused with the matrix. So we live in a matrix, and we live in different layers of the matrix, but this world is created from, we just call it the matrix. I'm sure in Hindu culture or Sanskrit, they have a specific terminology for the exact matrix that is of the world. But then there's also the cosmic matrix, which is more protective, loving, divine, and offers grace. So depending on your levels of consciousness, you can access the cosmic matrix. If you're watching this video, you already have some sort of perception of it, which means you are already accessing it. And this connects us to infinity abundance. Aditi, because she's the mother of gods, she symbolizes motherhood. She also symbolizes consciousness, unconsciousness, past, future, fertility. I wrote space there again because I love space. We got visible infinity, which is essentially space, and the unbounded. So I just thought I could use all of those terms because they all strike a different tone, even though they all kind of mean the same thing. I actually had a question asked the other day where someone was saying, would you rather explore deep space, the deep ocean, or your subconscious? And I was like, they're all the same thing from a symbolic standpoint. And when I said that, everyone looked at me slightly confused. I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, they're the same thing in my eyes because of the clairvoyance and the meditations. That's what I see. I see space and I see the ocean in my visions all the time. It's the same thing to me. Okay, so we have qualities of Aditi. So Aditi is nurturing, accommodating, secure, protective, stable, and abundant. So that's the qualities that are going to be reflected in a Purnavasu native: nurturing, accommodating, secure, protective, stable, and abundant. So Aditi gave birth to the Vasus, the demigods carrying desirable qualities: goodness, strength, and prosperity. So it was interesting, she only gave birth to sons. I was like, huh? Why? I'm not going to get all technical about the culture because that's why I try to relearn things or understand things from just connecting straight to source, because I don't know who wrote about this stuff, okay? The knowledge may be accurate, inaccurate, distorted, whatever. So we don't have to get into the technicalities of like why the cosmic mother only gave birth to sons, 30 sons at that. Let's just focus on her qualities and what that taught us. Because the gods and the goddesses are supposed to represent the almost infinite amount of qualities that divine has. So Aditi, the cosmic mother, is the mother to Varuna. So she's the cosmic mother, and Varuna is the god of the cosmic waters. So Varuna is connected to Shakti, and that's where Rahu, I don't know if it's transiting right now, but it's supposed to be transiting either sometime in Aquarius. So either this year or next year, soon. So while Jupiter is transiting in Purnavasu, Rahu will be transiting into Shakti. So one way or the other, these transits are going to be happening simultaneously. But Rahu in Aquarius is the energy of Shakti, So Rahu in Aquarius, even if it's not transiting through the nakshatra of Shakti Shak, it's still the energy of Shakti Shak, because Shakti Shak is ruled by Rahu and Aquarius. Sorry, Saturn. Saturn and Rahu. So that still gives off the same energy. That's why you're seeing a lot of craziness in the media and whatnot, because we've been going through the same themes with Saturn, Rahu exchanging signs and dispositors. They've been transiting through each other's signs. So we keep getting that repetitive theme throughout mainstream society. Things are going to mellow out, give it a couple years. Maybe. They're going to mellow out a little bit. We have here Purnavasu brings a healing light, and Shakti Shak is the 100 healers. So they have that theme in common, is healing. So Aditi married Kashyapa. This is the specifics. Kashyapa, I think he was like a sage or something like that, who was married to 12 of her sisters, including Diti. That's interesting, huh? So he married 12 of her sisters, and then Aditi gave birth to Indra and the 12 Adityas, Varuna, Parjana, Mitra, Amsha, Pushan, Datri, Aryaman, Surya, Bhaga, Savitir, Vamana, and Vishnu. So I've heard all of those names many times. Those are very popular gods' names. So I think Aditi gave birth to the best football team you've ever seen in your life. So, it says here she had a total of 33 sons. Well, that's the magic number, right? But Surya is a god of the sun. So she had some significant energies she was helping to give birth to. Let's now talk about the Purnavasu native. So I already talked about the list of people who have this energy associated with them, and they probably have some of these qualities. This is a Purnavasu native can offer healing words. They can be quite elegant with their words. They can be an avid reader or consumer of information. They like to be surrounded by comforts or opulence, a beautiful home. This is someone who's optimistic and inspires by setting an example. This is someone who seeks satisfaction in life, either through their accomplishments or even through what they surround themselves with, or what they eat. They seek some sort of satisfaction. This is someone who likes to travel or who can be well-traveled. This is someone who can be a teacher of hope. They can be a teacher of hope, but mainly they do this by example. This is someone who can be very protective or overly protective. So protective or overly protective. They may have a very loving relationship with their mother or guardian, or have been neglected. This person may struggle with insecurities. So looking at some of these Purnavasu natives, one of the common themes I noticed was that a lot of these individuals had sequels. They had perfected their characters. So we got Hugo Weaving. Now Hugo Weaving, I talked about him in my Jupiter in Arja Transit because I was talking about V for Vendetta. And I thought that movie really gave off an anarchy, which is what Arja is about. It's about learning self-governance, learning how to be independent, think for yourself. And lo and behold, he was in the Matrix. Now, I had no idea. Do you know why? He was wearing sunglasses in that, but he looks different in every single movie he's in. He transforms into that character. And when we look at his chart, we'll start to see why. So he was in the Matrix. I don't know if he was in all three of them, but he was in multiple Matrix. So that's kind of cool. Purnavasu, again, is like breaking free of those cycles, and he was in those movies. And then he was also in that V for Vendetta, too, where he was serving as he was setting off a vendetta, which is a series of retaliatory events against the government rule to wake up the people. He was in The Lord of the Rings. Never watched The Lord of the Rings. I may one day, because I've surprised myself with what I've sat through. These past couple years, I feel like I'm giving everything a chance because I have more time. And I like to use these movies to study. So the other day I watched The Godfather for the first time with Robert De Niro. And he was barely in it. I thought he was like the main character. He was barely in it. Because he was the backstory. He was a prequel story to the original Godfather guy who he played. Is it Michael Corleone? I don't know. He was one of the Corleones, which was funny. Okay, so we have The Matrix, The Lord of the Rings. He was also the voice for Megatron from Transformers. Now, I thought freaking whoever be voicing those voices for the Transformers killed it. I thought for sure Liam Neeson voiced one. He did not. I think he did something later with it. But turns out he did Megatron, so I think that was the enemy. And then he said he just did it for money, and he didn't really care for it because he didn't feel connected to the franchise. He didn't meet the director. So he ended up exiting. We have your Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, he did 5 Terminator movies, which is unbelievable. I was like, are you sure? Supposedly he was in 5 Terminator movies. Now I know he was at least in 3 of them, but 5, that's crazy. He also did Conan the Barbarian. I think he did like 1 and 2 versions of that. We have Drew Barrymore. She was in the Charlie's Angels franchise. I don't know. I feel like I see Drew Barrymore with Adam Sandler a lot. So she's always working with him. But I thought it was also cute that she did a movie called 50 First Dates that I was obsessed with back in the day. Watched that movie obsessively over and over, especially because I lived in Hawaii at the time, which is where that movie was shot. And they played a ton of Bob Marley music throughout that entire movie. I fell in love with the soundtrack. But in that movie, she plays a character who relives the same day over and over. And each time she sort of progresses. So she meets this guy and he knows that she's forgetting, but her family says she can't. What we do is we just pretend it's the same day. So they set up everything like it's the same day. But this guy says, no, like she needs to like be able to live and date, and I'm in love with this girl. So he decides to have a relationship with her, and they end up traveling. Actually, at the end of the movie, she was on a boat in like Alaska, which is kind of crazy. She woke up and she was on a boat in Alaska, and she had a daughter. So she got to live a whole life and progress, even though she had that memory loss. I thought that was kind of cool for a Purnavasu native. And we also have Tyra Banks. So Tyra Banks did Life Size 1 and 2. I didn't watch the second one. I think it was on YouTube, or maybe on YouTube. But it wasn't as impactful of a return, but it referenced her modeling lifestyle and experience, where she's gone in and out of modeling. She's had multiple resurrections around modeling. And she's taught modeling. She's been a mentor of modeling. She's modeled herself. So she definitely has repackaged that modeling brand for herself. So starting with Moon in Purnavasu. So Moon and Purnavasu examples. Here we have Hugo Weaving, Mara Wilson, Drew Barrymore, and Michio Kushi. So some of the key traits for a Moon Purnavasu native is that they have a strong connection to the mother, the nourisher, and they may be very receptive. This person could be quite reinventive, creative. They could be intelligent readers, have communicative gifts, be writers, speakers, and be very popular on media. Or with media, or using media. This person also may experience a lack and learns to seek to overcome it. So Purnavasu, again, is about redoing something again, being challenged to do it better. Moon in Purnavasu, unification of the mind and heart. Moon in Purnavasu. Moon is your mind and your emotions. In Purnavasu, mind and emotions. Gives a native a strong evolution when it comes to their mental, emotional life. One must learn to master the mind and emotions. One can powerfully travel their mind, channeling great insights. One can perceive life through an optimistic lens. They may also enjoy offering affirmations and may have a very active mind that imbues them with creativity or overthinking. One likes to be creative, active, creative, reinventive, and repackage their brand or approach to life. One will be challenged with maternal karmic cycles to break. One may have grown up in an environment where they were nourished, but will be challenged to create that nourishment for themselves, independent of their mother or guardian. One will have to embody a higher consciousness than mother. So that means that wherever their mother's consciousness was at, next generation is supposed to evolve a little bit. All the Purnavasu natives, I think, are going to be challenged with these themes. But for sure with the moon mother, Purnavasu, that means this person has to overcome, that's part of their dharma, their pathways, to overcome some sort of conscious state when it comes to how their mother, compared to where their mother's conscious state was. So let's say they want to be just like their mother. Well, you can't be just like your mother with a Purnavasu native. You got to elevate even more into a higher level of consciousness and expand. And more than likely their mother will encourage that. All right, starting with Drew Barrymore. So Drew Barry has her moon in Purnavasu in the Gemini side in the second house. And her dispositor Mercury is sitting in Capricorn in the ninth. So we got her chart here. And when we zoom in and look closer, she's got her moon there in that Purnavasu 24 degrees, sitting in the second house. And there's Saturn there. So definitely strong karmic, some sort of strong karmic pattern around the mother that she was being called to overcome. So with moon in Purnavasu and Mercury dispositor in Capricorn, and the fourth house ruler's sun in Aquarius creates a strong karmic power struggle with mother. So her fourth house is ruled by Sun, and it's sitting in Aquarius in the 10th house. So strong karmic patterns there. So again, we're being connected to Saturn strongly for her chart. So I like to talk about a whole person's chart, because if we just isolate placements, it doesn't work. She has a strong theme around karma, around her mother. And this explains why maybe her relationship to her mother was particularly difficult. So her mother neglected her, essentially, but Drew learned to reroute her life for the better. She is an avid reader. She was an acting prodigy, born into a family of actors. So there's a generational karma playing out, and she decided to play it out slightly different. In Ever After, specifically, she befriended Leonardo da Vinci, an inventor. So that takes me to reinventing. So he actually helped her to reinvent her identity in that movie. And she also had her glass slipper returned to her. So there's an example of returning, which is really cool. If you were to watch that movie, I bet you would find so many more Purnavasu themes in there. It's actually one of my favorite movies. So she grew up around the entertainment industry. Her mother was a single mother, became a single mother who worked as a waitress. Her father was an actor. Her mother was an inspiring actress. So her mother tried to break through into the entertainment industry, but she didn't. But someone who had the same amount of talent and gifts was Drew. She was insanely talented, started acting from, 4 years old, if not younger. But she also had connections due to her family and her father being a little bit more well-known. So she I read up that she emancipated from both of her parents, but she emancipated from her mother, who took more care of her at the age of 14. They had a very stormy relationship. So she went to rehab in a psychiatric center. I think she was sent somewhere where kids go to, like some sort of strict army-like school. I don't know, something like that of this sort for young ones. And it actually helped her to get back on the straight and narrow with her life. She later on forgave and expressed empathy towards her mother, though she still says that the relationship is complex. She described her connection to her mother as cosmic. See, I can't even make this stuff up. That was on the internet, guys. She described her mother as cosmic. Aditi. She also said that she had a powerful emotional pull to heal and understand their bond. So Purnavasu will help to enhance a very powerful bond with the mother, whether it's karmic or whatever. It's going to teach you something. So she also has 2 daughters, and she thought it was interesting that she had 2 girls, because she felt like this was her opportunity to overcome the karma challenges that she had with her mother. And she's also a single mother. Her and her husband tried to make it work, and they just were not aligning. So, you know, she is a co-parent with her 2 daughters, and she cherishes them so much. So Drew Barrymore, she always gives off this very optimistic, brightening energy. She has her own talk show. As of now, I'm sure it helped that she was having a return of that Taurus energy. Maybe like when Jupiter was transiting Taurus or Pisces, like, you know, she's decided to break out, try different things. She also has Rahu transiting her 10th house, so that could also be that career reinvention shifting around for her. She's got her Rahu in Scorpio and Anurata. That's nice, really good for healing, purification. That explains why the entertainment industry didn't necessarily corrupt her. You know, she's still like a very, almost like a pure like soul, because she always focuses on that optimism and finding that light within herself. And with that Mars, Mercury, Capricorn, I'm sure she can be quite disciplined. Venus in Pisces, nice. Very good for open heart energy, open heart chakra. She's very caring and loving towards people. So I thought it was interesting that she starred in Ever After. So in that, she's essentially Cinderella, and she has an evil stepmother. In that movie, her mother passes away, and so she's left with her stepmother. Her father then dies, and her father adores her. But now she's left with Angelica Houston, her evil stepmother, who basically treats her like a servant. And that's kind of, she actually does have the Cinderella Nakshatra. Does she? I think she does. So that Cinderella Nakshatra is either Purva Bhadrapada or Uttara Bhadrapada. I don't remember the exact degrees. I think she has both of them. But she has that in her chart. Yeah. So Purva Bhadrapada ends at 320. Yep, she has both. So she has the Cinderella Nakshatra, literally. So lots of challenges there, but she seemed to face it with grace. She has Jupiter in its own sign, so that's still very supportive. But strong Saturn is like ruling her chart. She has strong Saturn echoing throughout her whole chart. So discipline was key, detachment was key for her. Very beautiful. But yes, by the end of the movie, she said she just wanted her mother to love her. You know, Angelica, her stepmother. She's like, I just wanted you to love me. Like, I don't know why you decided to treat me so terribly. And yet, her mother just couldn't do it. So that's a strong challenge of karma around the mother, is that no matter how much we want our mothers to love us unconditionally, that's not always in the cards for us. But you can learn so much from the lesson. You know, you can gain so much from that, because ultimately we live in a matrix, and it's an illusion delusion, and that Saturn pressure will shatter your illusions and your expectations about how you think a mother is supposed to be. So often what people do is they try to overcompensate. They try to become a better parent than their parent was. Sometimes they rush into that without healing their own wounds first. You know, I think Drew really tried to do that for herself, but it's been challenging, and in the limelight, it's hard to really do that deeper healing. But she's one of those very bright healing energies out there in the world, and probably why her talk show is a hit and a success right now is because some of the transits she has having in her chart, it's supporting that. She's also gone through repackaging around her brand. She had a makeup brand, I think ended just recently, and it's discontinued. It was called Flower. I bought a couple of things a few years ago, and I thought it was really cute. And I saw a lot of people who were sad to see it go. But I think she's focusing on other, like hair care or some kind of other line. But she's doing a talk show now, so that probably takes up most of her time. Jupiter technically is the ruler of Purnavasu. So Jupiter in Pisces definitely is a strong reflection of this optimism, bright light, you know, divine wisdom, support, flower child energy. Drew Barrymore gives off that flower child energy very strong. Let's go ahead and move on to our next person. We have here Mara Wilson. So Mara Wilson has a moon Venus in Purnavasu with her Mercury dispositor in Ardra. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I had an exact birth time for her, and I honestly can't remember. I think I might have. So what's really cool, I talked about Mara Wilson for the Jupiter and Ardra video, and I noticed she had Purnavasu too. And in one movie, she played a young girl, Matilda, who is highly intelligent and avid reader. In fact, there was a quote from the story, the movie, saying that she devoured one book after another. And she was surrounded by books. So loved books. And in that show, her mother essentially neglects her and ignores her for some reason. Like, for some reason, she doesn't ignore her brother, but her mother ignores her. Honestly, her mother seemed to just not want the responsibility of having to take that up. So I thought that was a very beautiful reference as far as that Purnavasu energy and that mother energy. But that Purnavasu is the light after the storm. In the movie, you see a storm. So Matilda has telekinesis. She can make objects move with her mind. She can focus. And she essentially, at one point, tries to get a doll out of the house because it belongs to her teacher, Miss Honey. And Miss Honey, she develops the most beautiful bond. So prior to this, she had stayed home, she had read books, and her parents were supposed to send her to school during kindergarten, but they were neglecting her. And she was at home signing the packages for her father's illegal car parts. And then they realized, oh, we have to send her to school. So they send her to first grade, and the teacher realizes, Miss Honey's like, your child is very exceptionally smart. I don't even know she should be in this school. And so Miss Honey tries to take Matilda to Miss Trunchbull. Miss Trunchbull, I think, is the principal of the school. And she tries to tell her, hey, this girl needs to be in an elevated class. And for some reason, Miss Trunchbull becomes a big bully and says no. Her name is Miss Trunchbull. Bull, B-U-L-L. And she also has a relationship to Miss Honey. She was Miss Honey's auntie. And in fact, Miss Honey had lost her parents, both of them. And Miss Trunchbull had ended up having to adopt her. So a lot of themes around like adoption, losing mothers. And so Matilda goes to Miss Trunchbull's house and she's trying to steal the doll that belongs to Miss Honey. Because Miss Trunchbull essentially took over the house, kicked Miss Honey out, said, go live your happy life. All this stuff belongs to me, even though they originally belonged to your parents and you. And so she uses the wind in a windstorm, she uses the wind, her telekinesis, to steal the doll and pull it out. And she gives it back to Miss Honey. And towards the end, they end up defeating Miss Trunchbull. And then Miss Honey essentially adopts Matilda. So that's the light at the end of the tunnel. Is we went through the storm. She had that chaotic karmic experience with her family, was the black sheep. And then she managed to break free and find someone who unconditionally loved her and supported her. So a lot of good themes around Purnavasu. So in real life, what was crazy is that her mother actually died of breast cancer. While she was filming Matilda, her mother passed away. And so they did a movie dedication to her mother. She referred to her mother as strong, smart, and her mother also managed her acting career for a short period of time. She was getting lots of great roles. She worked with Robert Williams, I think, in Miss Doubtfire. After her mother's death, she said she felt completely lost. And that her mother had took on, her words, a mythical quality. A mythical quality. After her mother passed away, her father, she said, became overprotective. So looking at her chart, she's got a Sun Mars in Cancer. The father is nurturer here. You know, one way or the other, she was going to be nurtured. And if it wasn't her mother, it was going to be her father. She also talked about experiences as a child actor feeling really insecure about her looks. She was friends with Kristen Stewart, Scarlett Johansson, and these women were like bombshells or just popular beauties. And she felt like she didn't develop like they did. Puberty had come. It had made her feel insecure. She said that she had gone on the internet a couple times to see some articles written about her, and people were writing the most inappropriate things about her body. And she even remember when she was doing movie roles, people would always give her roles that seemed a lot younger for her age. And she was starting to develop, and they were telling her to wear like sports bras and stuff. So it just made her feel really insecure and just bad about herself. her conclusion, she wrote an article about this, is that she said she kind of just learned to accept the way that she looked. She had a boyfriend at one time who kept telling her, like, hey, I like you, I think you're beautiful, but she was very insecure about her looks. And so they ended up breaking up over that because she kept talking down about herself. So this was a common theme in her life where she had to overcome those insecurities and learn how to be confident in the way that she came off, the way she looked, in spite of whatever. Quite frankly, I think Mara Wilson is beautiful just the way she is. And I think Hollywood has ridiculous standards, including unrealistic, and a lot of those people have to get surgery just to keep up with, you know, that stuff. But yeah, sometimes you are working around people who are exceptionally beautiful and you're just like staring at their proportions and you're like, wow, so beautiful. But the thing is, there's a lot of cool characters out there who, you know, their looks are honestly on average with the rest of the world, but what makes them stand out is their personality. And I kind of wish, you know, if she wanted to explore acting, she had explored it from that space, because there's a ton of people who don't seem that insecure about their looks. They just get over it and they focus on other talents in their life. Overall, she does other things. She does voiceover. She does a lot of media stuff, like voiceovers. She's done things for like books and stuff like that, magazines, a lot of interviews. So that's what she participates in now, and that's where she feels most comfortable. So I thought it was very interesting that both her and Drew Barrymore had that common theme. So I called it, "Oh Mother, Where Art Thou?" Because both of their mothers went. Mara lost her mother. Her mother passed away from breast cancer, and it looks like Drew, mother was just not emotionally present with her. So both of them had to learn how to overcome those challenges, get through the storm, and they both did. The next one we have here is Hugo weaving. So he has a moon in Purnavasu, and he's likely either an Ardra or Purnavasu ascendant. Because I was looking at his chart, and I felt that Jupiter-Saturn was very fitting for his 7th house because he has a long-term partnership with his wife. They've been together since 1984. And the way that things lined up in his chart, he's super creative. You know, he's got that Van Gogh energy. Van Gogh has that Venus Pisces. Very interesting. We're seeing a lot of Purva Bhadrapada energies. He's also got K2 Venus in Purva Bhadrapada and Pisces here. And then he's got that Sun in Ravati. So I feel like I think it's very fitting that it's in the 10th house. If it's not, okay. You know, if it's not, it's not. So this is what I got for Hugo weaving. So we got the sequels. We talked about that. He is described as a storytelling chameleon. Very versatile. I wrote Gemini, but actually he's got not all of them. He has all of the mutable energies. He's got Rahu and Virgo, mutable, Gemini, mutable, Sagittarius, mutable, and Pisces. So he's got all of the chameleon-like energies. He's a strong performer and memorable. So to me, that's that Sun, K2, Venus, Pisces in the 10th house. Not only that, he's always masked. Like, he completely disappears into his character. He played Red Skull for some of the Marvel series, or one of the movies. He played Agent Smith with the sunglasses. He played V for Vendetta with a mask on. You know, he's done all this stuff to the face. I think it looks like he played a bear. I don't know. So he's very good at disappearing to hair and makeup and becoming different characters. He's played an elf in Lord of the Rings. And he looks completely different in all of these movies. I'm just like, I don't recognize it. It's crazy. It's like, you look at it, you hear him, you're like, oh, I feel like I've seen this person before. Where have I seen him? And he's got that K2. So that K2 with the Venus and the Sun, I mean, that's got to be doing something. Like, the reason why he's able to disappear into his characters. Chameleon. So he appreciates personal and character self-doubt and human complexity. He finds insecurity fascinating. Purnavasu. So V for Vendetta had a moment where he essentially, should we talk about that later? Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But V for Vendetta explored insecurity, imperfection. He had a very loving and supportive relationship with his mother. His mother sparked interest in literature and arts, and she was a playful companion. So he actually really enjoyed experiences with his mother, which maybe a moon in the first house. Sure, why not? That sounds like a really positive placement for someone who has a really good, uplifting relationship with their mother. See, he traveled as a child. He was born in, I think, Africa somewhere. He might have been born in Nigeria. So he traveled around Nigeria, Great Britain, and Australia. So he has an Australian accent, so he must have lived there for a significant portion of his life, thus the accent, or maybe in a community of sort. But he's quite traveled from an early age. I feel like it was the rich nourishment that he experienced with his mother that helped to support sparking his imagination, strong imagination. And like we said before, he was also did I say it here? He was also interested in, literature and arts because of his mother. So we can see all the different characters he's played. Yeah, just completely disappears into his roles. Energy-wise, too. You're just like, who is this person? So in V for Vendetta, V becomes an experimental monster and is insecure about his appearance. V is an avid reader and surrounds himself with opulence, Jupiter and Purnavasu. With the current transits, V for Vendetta is also a perfect representation of cultural identity of society as a whole. Dharma, the divine play, and Adharma. So these are the themes that are playing out right now, that are at the forefront. So we are discerning between the divine play and the karmic loops. Dharma, Adharma. We are defining and identifying control versus freedom, or fascism versus anarchy. Strong polarizing energy. So Hugo's chart reflects a majority of the significant themes, his chart alone, because he has a lot of the energies. He has Pisces, Aquarius. We got that Gemini, Jupiter and Gemini going on. So, and he has, well, we had a transit going through Virgo. He has a Pluto and Leo. That might be cool. So yeah, but those main 3 placements I think were particularly interesting. So it reflects a majority of the significant themes, especially in V for Vendetta. So Hugo has an exchange with Moon in Gemini and Jupiter and Sagittarius. So this gives him a worldly-like energy. So a nice exchange, as in like they're opposite of each other, they're sending energy to one another. Jupiter shifted from Ardra to Purnavasu in August. The trauma storm shifts to the calm after the storm. The storm is designed to shake people awake so that they can apply the knowledge. Saturn and Pisces paired with Rahu and Aquarius makes us see the bigger picture and consider our part in the divine play or song. So you could think of it as a song. In V for Vendetta, he was a conductor. He was conducting the explosions. Yes, very dark. V sees himself as a strategic conductor, saving humanity from the brink of destruction through anarchy. So anarchy is Ardra, saving humanity from the brink of destruction as a conductor. That's Shatabishak, Varuna. And the revolution, Uranus in Taurus, charges like electricity, charges the transformation, Pluto in Capricorn. So what is the systematic structure of society going to look like? But what's the systematic structure in ourselves? Are we learning how to break those structures down? Pluto. And this ensures the evolution, Neptune and Pisces. 3D to 5D shift. Okay, so we got some pictures here. In V for Vendetta, so I didn't even know this. I rewatched it the other day. And he actually was a huge fan of the Count of Monte Cristo. And what did I talk about in my Saturn and Pisces video? Part 2. The Count of Monte Cristo. The Count of Monte Cristo. I was like, oh my gosh, you can't make this stuff up. Now, I hadn't watched V for Vendetta. I don't know that I've ever watched that movie from beginning to end. I think that's a movie that was just always on a random channel. You turn the TV on and it's playing and you're like, oh, this looks interesting. I've never seen that movie from beginning to end before until a couple days ago. I had no idea he was a huge fan of the Count Monte Cristo. That's why he was like that sword fighter and he wanted to emulate the Count. He wanted to take revenge, Ardra. That's why I'm like, maybe he's an Ardra native because he tapped into that theme like nobody's business. And he always plays kind of like bad guys too. With that Ardra, you know, can give you a bit of an edge. It's like, I'm going to do the right thing for the wrong reasons. Like, I'm doing the right thing, but it's all for all the wrong reasons, so it negates it. So in this picture here, I have Aditi, the cosmic mother. So that's the nurturance. He was very nurturing towards Evie. In the comics and in the movie, it's kind of morally ambiguous because he did crazy things to Evie. He pretended he was the government, the cops, interrogating her, shaving her head. He did all of that, kept her in a jail cell so that he can free her of fear. And he convinced her, maybe became a cult leader and brainwashed her to become his follower and take on his legacy. And she did. She's the Evie to his V. So she took on his legacy after he died. Yeah, crazy stuff. So, but he was nurturing towards her. In the movie, he cooked for her. He cooked her breakfast, you know, gave her his place to stay, befriended her, cared for her. You know, there was like a kinship to them. In the movie, it was romantic. In the books, it was more ambiguous. She was kind of underage. But she was also a prostitute in the book, so I don't know, that makes it morally ambiguous again. Because he was, you know, he was focused on other things. Like, he was focused on like bigger world matters versus like sexual stuff. But I don't know. But we got that Varuna energy. You got Varuna in the corner. So Varuna has the snake in his hand. Looks like he's on an alligator. Interesting. Shot to be a shock. The 100 healers. I'm going to heal the world. Yeah, so he was an experimental monster. He's very insecure about that. There's a scene after Evie leaves, he throws the mask off and cries. And that's why he's taking revenge. Part of it's personal. Most of it. It's personal unhealed trauma. But a lot of it is he's like, I have to end this or else they're going to destroy humanity. Very crazy stuff. And this mirrored a similar theme with Robert De Niro, who played the creature in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which we will also talk about. This also focused on insecurity. But the V also brought me to 1984. So we have this, the cover of the movie for 1984, which probably came out in 1984. I don't know when that movie came out. But I remember talking about that in school because we read the book. And I remember talking about how it was not appropriate for us to see because it had nudity in it. But they have the V there. So that's the Vendetta V, Revenge. And George Orwell wrote that. And George Orwell is a Ardra native. Moving on to Michio Kushi. So Michio Kushi has a Pluto, Rahu, Moon in Purnavasu. So powerful energies. Oh, sorry. I said Pluto. What does he have? Oh, yeah, there it is. I was looking at his first house. I'm like, I don't see it there. So Michio Kushi is a Japanese educator and alternate cancer treatment advocate. He had pancreatic cancer, but he didn't pass away until he was 88. My grandfather also passed away from pancreatic cancer, but my grandfather, it was fast. So he passed away in his 70s. He helped to introduce modern macrobiotics to the West in the early 50s. His mother had a Christian background, so that's like a Western culture. But his father taught him Japanese Renaissance history and tradition. So that's the Eastern culture. So this is what opened up Michio to both Western and Eastern thought. So he taught macrobiotics. Macrobiotics is a fusion of Eastern philosophies and Western dietary concerns. He studied under, I think it says George Osawa. Gotta double check that spelling. But he did study under someone. So Michio Kushi, he popped up on my feed. And his videos kept popping up on my feed. And I was like, oh, they look interesting. And then I was listening to it, and I think I just got distracted or I got bored. And then part of it was he had a thick accent, and I was doing other things on the phone. So I ended up not watching it, but I saved his video to watch later. And then he just kept showing up on my feed. And so usually when things keep happening like that, I look into it. And I was like, this guy taught health, healing. You think he might be a Purnavasu native? He is. And that might actually be why his work is showing up right now, because Jupiter is transiting his Rahu. Now that's kind of weird. There might be something, I don't know, maybe one day I'll get into this, but even if a person isn't alive, their work is. Right? Even if, their spirit has moved on to some other destination, their work is still alive. So every time Jupiter transits or something transits, there's some sort of expansiveness. His videos started popping on the feed. His son is the one who's been uploading these videos, and they've been on there for some years. But now there's a resurgence of people connecting to these messages, because what is Jupiter transiting? It's transiting his Rahu and his moon. So he became famous, well known for this Purnavasu energy, bringing healing light to other people through his insight and knowledge. He is a perfect example of an elevated Purnavasu expression. So I had to use him. So not a coincidence that he popped up on my feed. So when I was studying one of his videos, it was called The 7 Layers of Consciousness and Basic Training of Consciousness. And this caught my attention because I essentially channeled the information for that last year during the summer. I channeled the 7 levels of consciousness. I had no idea what the heck the 7 levels of consciousness were, never read about it, nothing. And I just started channeling this information. So I started watching his video, and he described it differently, but a lot of the same information. So that's why it caught my attention, because I was like, I made a video on that. Let me actually learn, what he channeled. It was amazing. These were my notes. He said that depending on how you think, Purnavasu is how you see the world, perception. So he knows this. He lived this for himself. Now, he's definitely a strong teacher archetype, because look, he's an Aquarius ascendant with Jupiter, Mercury, and Ascendant. And I'm pretty sure that Eckhart Tolle is an Aquarius ascendant too, and he's got a sun there. So great authors, writers, teachers of higher thought, higher consciousness, especially with Aquarius, very strong antenna. Aquarius is a very powerful antenna. Not in that he has support. He's got Saturn in Libra, exalted, and he's got Rahu, Pluto, and Moon in Gemini. He's got all the air signs. Powerful teacher energy here. He's meant to be a teacher. He's meant to teach us higher consciousness, higher thought. So he said that it doesn't matter if it's a big universe or small universe, it's all the same universe. So it doesn't matter if you perceive the universe to be big or small, it's the same. He says this is all a dream. Dream is consciousness. It's like a cloud. And that dream of consciousness is defining and deciding your life. Everyone, I love that he said this, is free to have any type of consciousness. You are free to have any type of consciousness that you want. You are free to create and to destroy. So people want to know, well, what's letting people destroy this world or destroy? Well, they can't destroy everybody because not everyone has the same consciousness. Like, not everyone lives in fear. That's why we're not seeing the whole world blow up in smoke, and that's why the world will never blow up in smoke, because fear is not that tempting. By the end of the day, there's always going to be lots of people who want to enjoy pleasure, calm, peace, happiness. And so we're collectively manifesting that. You can make yourself free through consciousness, is what he was essentially saying. So depending on your conscious level, how free you are depends on your level of consciousness. At the same time, you can make yourself a slave. So he gave an example of someone who's like patriotic. And this brought me to the nationalism rhetoric that has been spreading like wildfire in the media and on the internet. So some people believe, I have to die for my country. So this is a program. I have to die for my country. We're not born into coming into life that way. That's a program installed that you free willingly step into. So you're not brought up from 1 year old, 2 years old. Not really, unless you're brought up in a very patriotic family. It might be different, unless you challenge the status quo. He said that if a man is unhappy, his unconsciousness is making him unhappy. So if a man is unhappy, his consciousness is making him unhappy. If a man is happy, his consciousness is making him happy. We are creating our behaviors by our thinking, by our eating, so forth. All of our habits. So we are creating our life by our behavior, our thinking, our eating. So this is what he teaches: behavior, thinking, eating. Nourishment, food, nourishment. Fear means self-bound. Self-bound by our own image, his own imagination. So image, imagination. So basically, whatever your imagination is, Aditi, the boundless. If you can tune into Aditi, boundless, you're free. But if you're bounded, which is like Diti, not Aditi, but Diti, if you're bounded in the construct, then you're slaved in your own image, in your own imagination. So we just don't give enough credit to our own imagination. We talk about this, but the imagination is not here to make you a millionaire. That's a system. It's a program. Why do you need $1 million? Why do you need a big house? Why do you need a big house? Why do you need all this money? Because I can do whatever I want. Why do you want to do whatever? Like, why? Bigger house means more responsibility. More money means more responsibility. More systems, more bank experiences, taxes. It doesn't mean more freedom. So we have to really think about, well, what does freedom actually feel like? It means abundance. It means you don't have to worry about your circumstances. The only way for you to liberate yourself of worrying about your circumstances is to stop worrying about your circumstances and to appreciate what you have and to know that whatever you need will always show up. That's true abundance. Okay, so I have some additional examples here of Michio Kushi's work. You can check these out. Diagnosing one's destiny, karma and reincarnation, macrobiotic healing. You can buy his book. So this was uploaded by his son, Frida Kushi. You can find him on YouTube. Yeah, and I thought it was cool that for one of his lectures, he was teaching this in 1984. So George Orwell was he was the futuristic thinker, right? With that Rahu Gemini energy. Futuristic thinker. He understood how to study systems and he knew where we would be 10 years. It was a bit exaggerated, but he knew where we would be in the future. Thus, he wrote the book 1984. And this took me to, Michio was teaching this knowledge. I think George Orwell passed away earlier. Like, I don't know if it was 40s, 50s. It was sooner than that, 60s. But he passed away before the 80s. And Michio was teaching this at this time, and the reason why these Purnavasu teachers show up is they are the returners of the light. They are here to restore the balance here on earth. So this will alleviate the pressure. So people always feel like, oh, we need to worry about the chaos in the world. No, you don't. You just need to get ready for a teacher is going to show up because the universe has already birthed them. They here. They exist. And probably some of you are Purnavasu natives if you're interested in this kind of work. So I thought that was an interesting connection. V from Vendetta, 1984, Michio Kushi teaching this kind of work in 1984, coming to the West and proliferating, spreading this information. Instead of misinformation, he's spreading the truth. All right, let's go ahead and talk about Ascendant in Purnavasu. Tyra Banks, Robert De Niro, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. So the key traits for the Ascendant in Purnavasu is one's life is marked with attempts, mess-ups, redos, forgiveness, and returning to the light. One must make lots of mistakes in life to learn and forgive themselves. As they mature, they will attract forgiveness from others. They can be quite active or chaotic or impulsive, with a contrast to their calm. So they can be chaotic or impulsive or very internally active in contrast to their calm. Or they can express this externally, depending on them. So how others will see a Purnavasu native typically as a nurturer. So someone who's very nurturing, motherly, fatherly, could be comedic, private, and inspiring. Appearance. I thought we can play into this realm, even though this is not my specialty. This is more Claire Nocti's specialty. But they can have expansive, large features, a long nose, face, or limbs, complementary of Jupiter. They can have distinct bone structure. I've noticed a lot of them do have like really nice bone structure, especially, you know, getting a little some cheeks, sharp cheek edges going on over here. I gotta like, they all have a strong forehead, it seems like, going on there. Like very, maybe like expansive forehead, like exposed to the world. Their mental capacity, right? Big forehead with that Jupiter influence. They could smile with their eyes. They could smize. So Tyra Banks actually teaches this. She teaches smizing. Someone is expressive with their eyes. They can be dreamy, handsome, pleasing, benevolent, or beautiful. So Jupiter is blessing them some way, somehow. Especially with the Ascendant, that's how you appear. So you're going to have some sort of attractiveness to you. We have Robert De Niro, Tyra Banks, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay, so let's look at them. I also added Lisa Bonet to the pictures because I was looking for an Ascendant in Purnavasu, and I actually thought she fit it perfectly. So I have the pictures of them, the people when they are young versus when they're older. Arnold Schwarzenegger, his son is like a doppelganger of his younger self before he, you know, gained all that muscle in his life. But yeah, he's like him and his son have like very similar eyes. Arnold, when he smiles with his eyes. You look at Robert De Niro in the corner here. He looks like he's smiling. His eyes are very expressive, like. And then you have Tyra, who is the queen of smizing. So she's a model. She knows how to be very expressive with her eyes. And we got Lisa Bonet here. So Lisa Bonet, I like to compare because, you know, people tend to do all kind of things with their faces, but Lisa Bonet is just known for being very beautiful in general. I'm sure because of her Venus, Taurus qualities or whatever she's got going in her chart, I'm sure. But she has, looking at her younger picture, she has like very beautiful, soft features, very full lips, you know, a nice structured nose. I don't think Lisa's ever gotten surgery. I think she's actually probably against surgery. Honestly, it looks like she just lost a lot of weight. You know, like she's on a very strong, strict diet, healthy diet compared to where she was before. But that Jupiter energy softens faces somewhat. Robert Niro, I know he plays really intense characters in his movies, but in real life, he actually comes off as very like sweet, easygoing, fatherly. Lisa Bonet is known for being, you know, she's a mother to her 3 kids. Tyra she has a son. Arnold has 5 kids. And Robert De Niro, I think, has 7 kids. So all of them are parents. So there's this like desire to like nurture, create kids, bring progeny into this world, or be very creative with themselves. Let's go ahead and look at Tyra Banks. So Tyra Banks has her Ascendant in Purnavasu, and she has K2 and Saturn in Gemini as well. So those could be Migrashira placements or Ardra. Ardra goes to 20 degrees, yeah. So there could be some Ardra there. We have here, so Tyra literally always talks about finding the light source. You know, when someone is looking at a camera, find your light. She's always talking literally about finding the light. Modeling, it's part of why she's very good at modeling. If you look at her images, is because she knows how to find the light. She's also had to face insecurities when it comes to body image. Modeling world can put a lot of pressure on that, and she's fluctuated when it comes to her, you know, her physical appearance. But she's rocked it. She's actually just gone with it instead of trying to, you know, put an extensive amount of pressure because she's not looking the way that she used to or whatever. So some of her quotes is to never dull your shine for somebody else. That feels very Jupiter in Purnavasu. Never dull your shine for somebody else. She also talks about smizing, which is smiling with the eyes. am I doing it? Maybe. She is a media mogul and a very optimistic communicator. So she always talks in this very positive, light, and that's why she's very good for media, because she brings this positive energy, and same with Drew Barrymore as well, having a talk show. She has branded and repackaged her brand. So she had I don't know if it was like a makeup line or a hair care line, but she has rebranded herself because she is her brand. She's left the modeling world. She's come back to the modeling world. She's one of the first Black women on, if not the first Black woman on Sports Illustrated. So, and then she's done other things, Victoria's Secret, and all of these have sort of revived her career. She's also had disappointments, things that didn't work out. She created something called Model Land, where people were supposed to come and be discovered as models. And this happens around the time of COVID. So they were building this, and then it opened for a while, and then it just didn't sustain after that. But she's more well known through the media for America's Next Top Model, which has been on TV for, I don't know if it's on TV anymore, but it was on TV for a long time. Forever, it seemed like. She has a very, very close relationship with her mother, strong bonds. Her parents got divorced when she was young, and she had a good relationship to her father too, but she was a lot closer with her mother, very, very close. And she wanted so badly to have kids too, but she wanted to wait to move forward in her career, with that sun in the 6th house, definitely career focus there, and you got that Saturn in the 1st house. So more serious oriented, very focused. She's got Venus in Capricorn, Jupiter in Capricorn. Like that is the energy of someone who's about getting to work. She's got Pluto in Virgo. But later on in life, she decided she wanted children. She had a son. So Arnold Schwarzenegger here, he has his Mercury, Ascendant, and Venus in Purnavasu. He moves through life seeing the glass half full. And he always has that sort of positive rhetoric whenever he's talking. Also good with smiling with his eyes. He's also an environmental advocate, which I think is very fitting for Purnavasu, recycling and repackaging. So he had a famous line in Terminator where he said, "I'll be back." That's very Purnavasu there. "I'll be back. I'll be back." It's hilarious. I was quoting him in one of my son videos, and I was like, oh yeah, didn't he say "I'll be back"? And then to find out he's a Purnavasu native is just hilarious. Because he came back not for one movie, but I think 5 movies of Terminator. He's known for saying that he wanted to inspire people because of you, I didn't give up. So he wants people to be inspired by him and to not give up on life. So he knows his purpose. He grew up in an abusive home in the sense that his father was very strict, very abusive. His mother was very endearing, adoring. He loved her, but his father was the one calling the shots. And after he left, he went on to create his own life. He's also said that there's no shortcuts. Everything is reps, reps, reps. So originally when I put him in my sun video, my sun in Cancer, I called him the Inspirer. And I don't know why I had said that, because I'm like, that's not a description exactly for not a Purnavasu. A Cancer native is more of a nurturer. And he's close with he has a relationship with all of his kids. If you've seen him talk with his son, Patrick Schwarzenegger, there's a beautiful rapport of father and son. He's very supportive of his kids. He wants them to have a good life. And even though he had a kid out of wedlock, he is very much participant in that kid's life too. He wanted to be a good father to his kids. Even though he's made mistakes in life, he still wants to be there for him. So I noticed that's a common theme with Purnavasu natives. They really want to be a good parent this time around if they can. And I think it's interesting that he had sons, daughters too. Drew Barrymore had daughters. And Michio Kushi also had sons. I'm like, oh. But Tyra had a son too. So it gives you an opportunity, if you have a child who's the same gender as you, to almost reparent yourself in a way. Well, how would I have reparented myself? So I think that's kind of cool. But yes, he is an inspirer, and turns out he has an aspiring ascendant, Purnavasu. Next we have here Robert De Niro. So Robert De Niro has his ascendant in Purnavasu. So Robert De Niro's mother was an artist and a poet. He had a deep and formative relationship with his mother. So it was interesting to note that he married his first wife, and then after a year separated, then reconciled and renewed their vows. And then they were together for 21 years before they officially split off and divorced. And he's been married, I don't know if it's twice, but he has 7 kids with, I think, 3 different people. And recently he just had a child. So I think fatherhood is a huge theme in his life. With Robert, it's kind of funny that, I don't know. Still, even till now, he's trying to redo that experience of having kids. But I thought it's interesting that he got a divorce from his first wife, or he was about to. They were separated, and then they ended up getting back together and renewing their vows and trying to make it work. So Purnavasu's that energy of, let's try to make this work. Arnold Schwarzenegger was with his wife for quite a while before they ended up splitting. So it's like, that's why I feel like this placement is very much marks that one's life is going to be full of mistakes. Like, these people are going to make mistakes. They're going to maybe use their emotions, or they're exploring their emotions. They don't know what to do with it with those first degrees. They're like, I don't know. And then they just make some emotional decisions. Both Robert De Niro and Arnold Schwarzenegger had a bunch of Cancer energy in their charts. So there's like a theme around emotions and like learning how to make better choices in spite of our emotions. Maybe they made a lot of emotional, impulsive choices that got them in trouble. So his movies, Robert De Niro's movies, is themes around mental or emotional pressure. He plays characters with flawed justifications, moral corruption, and crime, and of emotionally heightened states, or in emotionally heightened states. He also plays fathers and has done a lot of comedy. So he's quite a chameleon. He's genuinely creative with this Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Leo energy. Beautiful. He definitely knows how to channel emotions very well. It's why he's one of the best actors. The best actors and actresses are always going to be fire and water. Fire and water. Every time. I see it every single time. Fire and water. He has a ton of fire and water in his chart. He has communicative abilities with that Gemini. You got to have that as an actor. And then he's doing a little bit of channeling with that Mars in the 12th house. And both him and Arnold Schwarzenegger, they both did physical, like a lot of physical stuff. They both have Mars in Taurus. That's very interesting to note. And Arnold, I think he won awards for being like the strongest man or a bodybuilder. And then Robert De Niro starred in movies where he was like boxing. He starred in The Raging Bull. So movies like Righteous Kill, Heat. So it's very physical, a lot of physicality, a lot of aggression, violence. The fire definitely helps. And even Arnold Schwarzenegger has his moon in Sagittarius. So there's that fire showing up for him. He plays characters with flawed justifications, moral corruption, and crime. And that to me plays on that mental emotional. It's like, okay, you do things, but do you do it? Why do you do them? What's your justification? A lot of people do things, they commit crimes because of some sort of emotional vengeance. Like, or their mother wasn't there for them, or someone did them wrong, or, they end up carrying out those revenge themes later on in life because of there's like an emotional, I'm hearing the word uninhibited, but there's something deeply emotionally wounded. It's deeply wounded and it has not been healed. So those are his characters. The father energy, again, that nourisher. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger has played fathers in movies. I remember he played in some kid movies too that were more age appropriate for me. where he was fathers. So they both play fathers a lot. They come off as like fatherly. That's so cute. And both of them have done comedy. Yeah, all of them have. Tyra Banks, she's done movies or shows. That's mainly her genres. Like if she does a show, it's comedy. Life Size was very comedic. Arnold, even his serious characters have a comedic edge. And Robert De Niro, his spectrum is insane. And he has played, in Meet the Fockers, he's played his bad grandpa, something like that. Something weird. Like he's played really interesting comedic characters. Another thing I wanted to point out for one of his movies he did was Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So I watched this out of curiosity, and it definitely had a lot of the Purnavasu themes. So they talked about insecurity and beauty, and there was a lot about the parent-child bond. So Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is a representation of the chaotic, toxic parent-child relationship. So this movie starts with the narrator talking about a time of upheaval and change and invention. So Rahu is sort of the inventive, Uranus, electricity as well. Rahu in Aquarius, very inventive in electricity, like we're going through right now. And I talk about transit so people calm down, because people always feel like it's the end of the world. And I'm like, we just need to like breathe, because the end of the world would mean the end of the simulation. And the simulation is not designed to end, it's designed to keep going. You're designed to exit the simulation if you want to, but the game always keeps going on. It's an option. But I talk about this because it's showing you what the energy is about. So we don't have to look at the world and be like, oh my gosh, it's a time of upheaval, it's the end of the world. It's a time of upheaval, and things will chill out eventually and mellow out. It'll be a push and pull. And depending on your consciousness, you're going to align with certain things in your life. So create the change you want to see in your consciousness. So the movie starts out with a narrator talking about a time of upheaval and change and inventions. The opening sequences of a boat in a storm, Ardra. And then it goes off to a different story where they're in the snow. That definitely brings me to Aquarius. Aquarius energy is mental pressure and the fortress of solitude. Like, so it's like in this vast snowy place. Pressure. Icy. Saturn. So Victor Frankenstein's mother dies. So the main character is a man named Victor Frankenstein. His mother dies, and he vows to fix death. So his mother is having a baby later on in his life. He's an adult now. She gives birth, and she dies in childbirth. The child lives. There's all this blood everywhere. So that was a symbology connected to childbirth and creation. Aditi, childbirth, creation. So he starts dissecting bodies, Ardra, dissecting dead bodies to understand them. And from this, he learns to invent solutions, Ardra. So we're dissecting, now we're putting different pieces together. He's a philosopher, so he's in school, and he's very Ardra energy, like he's very aggressively like against death. Like he's debating people, telling them, well, no, we need to find a way. We need to find a way to save these people, because he was traumatized from losing his mother, Purnavasu. So he challenges that we don't know where death and life intersect. He says, what is death and what is life? We can't just define that. If a person's body is dead, are they dead? So on a deeper level, we're kind of stepping into higher consciousness, and we're like, consciousness doesn't end. But, he's trying to control it. He's trying to pay mad scientists and use the wrong justification to create something that's not meant to be created. Because we're not meant to play God, right? That's to be shock energy. We don't play God. We let God do God. But that's also a eternal struggle and temptation that we as humans have. The reason why we keep creating things that are just like hurting us is because we can't resist our own inherent shadow and wounded energy, unhealed energy. So this takes me to like the eternal life circle. So where does life and death intersect? Well, it's a circle. There is no life and death, really. Death is just an illusion. So he starts to use raw materials. Raw, Ardra, raw. And he creates his Frankenstein creature, which the creature never had a name. And it is birthed in the embiotic sac liquid that he created. So this is the womb. This is the cosmic womb of Aditi. So the birth is very messy. And the fact the baby, or his child, Robert De Niro, was not coming alive. He was trying to get him to like breathe, and he just wouldn't come alive. It was just so messy. So this is a reminder that birth is messy, creation is messy. It always has a messy phase. And then he goes to sleep, and then his child is alive looking at him, and he's terrified. For whatever reason, he created this thing. He was trying to get it to stand up. And at this point in time, he decides he doesn't want it anymore. And so he fights it, and the Robert De Niro, the creature, ends up running away. So he's essentially abandoned, and now he's living out on the street. He's hunted, he's feared, and now he's just running off of survival instincts. So his survival instincts are very strong, with that Ardra Purnavasu intersection, strong instincts to like find a way to get through these conflicting experiences. So the hunting also takes us a bit to Ardra as well. The hunter or the arrows can also take us to Purnavasu. So he was feared, running on his survival instincts. He ends up eating and living with the pigs. Someone's, it's like a pasture area walled off where the pigs live. That's where he's accepted, unfortunately. So all the while he's there, he's staring into the home of a family, Purnavasu, home, safety, security. And he feels warmth from watching this family. The mom at times is teaching her kids how to talk. So that's that Gemini energy, intellect. And he starts learning and studying like the kids. He learns how to read. He learns how to talk. And he would do hidden acts of kindness. So for the family, he helped them with their farming. And they called him the spirit of the forest. They're like, oh, he's our good luck spirit. They didn't know idea what was doing all those things for him. So even though these people are hunting him at times, he still had compassion in his heart. And he wanted to be kind to them. But at some point, the family leaves the home. They're like, so what happens is the landlord comes seeking his money, his rent payment. And he starts attacking the blind grandfather that lives with the family. He attacks him, and then the creature comes out and he gets, I don't know, he probably killed the landlord. It wasn't really explained. And the grandfather thanks him, but the grandfather is blind. And so Robert De Niro, he has no idea what Robert De Niro's, the creature, looks like, but he's like, come in, sit down. And they have a talk and conversation, and Robert De Niro confesses. He says, I'm insecure because people don't like me. And he's like, well, why don't people like you? He's like, I'm not beautiful. Those people are beautiful. The father with the kids and the mom come home, and they think that he's the one who attacked his father because he heard his father screaming, or someone screaming. And he says, get out, get out. And the creature runs away, and he cries. And then the family up and leaves. And so I think it's around Christmas time they're doing this. So they up and leave the house. They abandon the home, and they abandon him. And this is where the rage, the emotions start to come up to the ceiling. And he gets angry, and all that rage and pressure, all of that just starts coming at him. And now he's like, I'm taking revenge. And so he goes to seek his creator, right? His mommy, his daddy, his father. He goes to seek him. And one of the things he does is he kills Victor's younger brother, the one who the mom had birthed before she died, in revenge. And at some point, they're meeting up in the Fortress of Solitude. And he tells Victor, he says, you gave me these emotions, but you didn't teach me how to use them. And he was trying to have this conversation, like, what am I? Who am I, and how do I exist? You're my creator. And this kind of took me to the Truman Show, too. We'll talk about that a bit later. And Victor was telling him, well, knowledge resides in he's like, I don't know, he's like, you're not human, you're not like us. That was Victor's justification. I don't know what you are. But he's like, I'm something. I can think and I feel. So, and he's like, I can speak, I can read. So that was very Purnavasu conversation that they were having. And he asked his creator, did you ever consider the consequences of your actions when you created me? Because what he's displaying is a narcissistic detachment of a parent or a creator, someone playing God. So similar to The Truman Show. So I looked this up. Ed Harris, who played the creator of The Truman Show, where Jim Carrey was in a reality TV show from the time he was born. Ed Harris is the mad scientist creator. And Ed Harris has a moon in Purnavasu and a Uranus in Ardra. Mad scientist. Ed Harris also starred in Stepmom, where he married for the second time. So doing something over again. And that marriage was supposed to be his successful marriage. But, we look at these creators, right? And this begs the question of people creating things. What is evil? Because Robert De Niro character is trying to figure out who he was and what he was. And Victor for some reason had decided that he was evil before he even knew him or what he was. So there's a lot of questions around morality. So then the creature says he wants a friend, a companion who won't hate him, a woman. He says he wants a companion and that he will take his companion. They will go live the rest of their life somewhere else. And even during this time, during the whole movie, the creature was expressing that he was a poet, right? He was a poet, Purnavasu, very intentional with his words. And that conversation he was having with Victor was like a conversation with God that we have. Like, who are we? What are we? So that's what Purnavasu is about, having that conversation with a divine source and force. So overall, this movie had a theme around being left alone, unconditional love in spite of a shady past. After Victor refuses to create the thing, because when he tries to create it, his bride, his love from childhood, threatens to leave him. But he's like, you can't leave me, because he has abandonment wounds after his mother died. He's like, don't leave me, please. I'll do anything. And she's like, okay, we gotta leave the project. And so he decides he's going to kill the creature now. And the creature finds out right away, because the creature's in his house. So the creature kills his dad. And it's like, okay, we're going to take revenge. We're going to keep doing this. Let's do it. Because he doesn't know how to use his emotions. He's just angry. He's like, well, I'm angry. I'm going to be angry. And that's how some people justify what they do. Well, I'm angry. I'm going to take anger out. Maybe Donald Trump. Okay, and so while he's on his honeymoon and Victor's searching for the creature, they don't find him. He goes on his honeymoon and he's with his wife. And then when he leaves the room, the creature shows up and sneaks up on the wife in the room. And, she's scared, but at the same time, she's like, please don't do anything to me. But as soon as Victor walks into the room and realizes that the creature's there, the creature goes in and grabs her heart and rips it out of her chest. That was very symbolic. Rip my heart out, why don't you? That's the abandonment. You ripped my heart out. So he ripped her heart out. And then Victor has to save her. This is the love of his life. So he takes him back to his mad scientist lab. His friends try to tell him, stop, don't do this. Please don't do this. She's gone. You just got to let her go. He won't do it. He can't let go because he's so wounded. So he turns his wife, Helena Bonham Carter, into Corpse Bride. And it begs this question. How far would you go to feel love? Apparently Victor will go all the way. So Victor was the original villain in this story that created another karmic cycle. So he created another. He was the villain and he created a villain through the karmic cycle. After the creator dies, so towards the end, he brought the corpse bride alive, but then the men were fighting over her. And the creature kept saying, you're beautiful, even though most people would find her terrifying as the corpse bride. So there's this theme around unconditional love that kept showing up throughout. And attachment to the mother. But then she ends herself with the fire. And then she burns the house down and Victor leaves and Later on, Victor dies, and as he's dying, the creature is sitting next to him, watching him, and the creature weeps. And the men, they were apparently hearing this tale and the story from this creature. He was telling this whole story. And they're like, why don't you come with us? Like, why do you weep for this man? And he says, this man never named me. I'm unnamed, but he was my father. So that's the parent-child, that sums up the parent-child's bond. We feel connected to the people karmically who bring us up, but it's like a bond, and there's an unconditional loving connection there beyond all the drama. No matter what, we feel hurt when they hurt. We feel something. And so the men on the boat, on the ship from the beginning of the movie, who had found this creature in the midst of this Icelandic land, say, why don't you come with us? And the creature says, no, I'm done with men. So he experienced the cruelty of humanity and he's over it. So he decides to light himself on fire with his father's body. And he dies with his creator, his father. So the circle, somewhat of a dark karmic circle was completed, but the circle completed. And then the men ask, where to now, Captain? So the Captain energy, you look at my Saturn Pisces video, very much that travel energy, but also Purnavasu is about travel, right? The boat, the ship, travel. And the captain says, home. Purnavasu, returning back home safely after you've gone on your mission. The mission was to meet the creature and whatever they were doing on that ship, and then now they're going back home. So the ship returns home safely after the mission. And now you have been humbled by your experiences. So that's the whole point of our travels in this human existence, is to be humble, to learn, to grow in our consciousness, and then return back home. So the main lesson from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein: for every selfish thing that humanity pursues, the first to suffer will be the children and the women. Child would suffer due to its attachment to mother or parent. Woman will suffer because of her attachment to men or child, and men will suffer due to the void of woman, and the cycle continues. So there's like a bit of a cycle being created with the mother-child, the mother-father and the child dynamic here. But this is parts of ourselves that exist in us. One must transcend their suffering and cultivate a strong sense of self through creating an inner divine union of Shakti and Shiva, and humble themselves to becoming the divine child. So the mother, so Shakti, Shiva, divine child. So the divine child, I always refer to us as divine child, because that means we're humbled. That means we're not running around with our ego saying we know everything and we know the right thing to do. We humble ourselves to divinity, and that helps us to harmonize our Shakti and Shiva in us by humbling ourselves to divine and being receptive and following their guidance. So they humble themselves to becoming the divine child, so as to not make others suffer from their actions, which were spurned from their inability to process their thoughts or emotions. We cannot blame our parents for our inability to process what we think and how we feel, but must courageously take up this task for ourselves. All attachments are trauma bonds unless the individual has transcended their trauma through inner work, journaling, and sitting with themselves. Break the cycle through conscious effort and deeply consider the consequences to your actions. So instead of finding peace within himself, he decided to take revenge. And once he did that, that ended his life sooner, because he didn't want to live. To take revenge is to choose death. To take revenge is to choose darkness. To choose the light is to choose life. To keep going. Keep going. So another reference I had, this drama started appearing during this transit. It's called Bon Appetit Your Majesty. It's a Korean drama. And the theme around it was motherhood and nourishment. So it had the energies of Kritika, Purnavasu, and Saturn in Pisces. So Kritika is like food, chef. Purnavasu is motherhood, nourishment. And Saturn in Pisces is about ending those bigger karmic cycles in our lives. So it was about a time loop, time travel, Saturn, time travel, and Pisces is kind of like time travel because it's like infinite traveling. Time travel movies almost never make sense. So this is based on a true story of a Joseon dynasty king who becomes a tyrant and is exiled, then dies because of it. So in real life, this king became a tyrant and was like killing people because of what they did to his mother, Purnavasu. So traumatized by the mother's lack of presence, doesn't process mental, emotional stuff properly, feels abandoned, and takes revenge, creates a cycle. So he ended up ending his life because he was hogging all the women. He was taking hundreds of women for his pleasure. He was killing people left and right because he was basically throwing a big tantrum at the world because of what his grandmother did to his mother, and he was angry. So this drama sort of taps into that, but from a fantasy perspective. So what happens is a successful cook from the future travels back in time during an eclipse. So eclipse, like portal change, after reading the words on a page, Gemini energy, which turns out to be a spell. While on a plane ride in the bathroom, cleaning her shirt, she's transported thousands of years back into the past. So I think the Joseon king, probably like around the 1500s, like medieval times. By circumstance, she becomes the royal cook to survive and must cook for a very picky king. All the while, she's searching for the book that brought her there. The king and her get close, but at every turn, she strives to help alleviate the king through nourishment. So they get close, they start to bond, and the first thing he starts to feel when he eats her food is he feels connected back to childhood, nourishment. And he feels his connection to his mother. And so he starts to fall in love with her because she reminds him of that nourishment that he was seeking and desiring. Now in real life, that won't work. Replacing someone with someone you lost will not work because the pain was in here, not out here. So the king is touched by the love she pours into her food, reminding him of his childhood before his mother was exiled and killed. Turns out the book the cook is looking for was actually written by him, and it was of all the meals that she created for him. And it was poems he wrote for her and for the love he felt for her. And so the book was to help to create the circle, the time travel loop. But all the while, the king is challenged with maintaining his cool throughout the story after his corrupt authorities try to overthrow him. So in the movie, the people were creating propaganda, right? Gemini, Ardra energy. They were creating a bunch of propaganda about him. They were saying he was doing all these things. In real life, he probably did all these things, the real king. But in the romantic movie kdrama, they were creating propaganda, and they were, what do you call it when you get someone to take on a crime that they didn't commit? They were setting him up. They were setting him up to make him look like he did it. By the end of it, everything went to they put it on him, said that he did it even though he didn't, and then she died in the past, and then that death ignited her going back to the future, and the book, the spells he had with him in his pocket helped to elevate her to the future. And then there's a page left with him, and he used that to travel into the future to be with her because there was no point in him being there anymore. He was an exiled king. So in real life, he died after 2 months of exilization. So yeah, maybe he time traveled. That's a much happier ending. All right, so let's talk about the best one yet, Jupiter in Purnavasu. We got Frida Kahlo, Kurt Cobain, and George Harrison. So Jupiter in Purnavasu example. So Jupiter, the guru or Dharma in Purnavasu, returning light. This creates the energy that where one must go through a series of repetitive mental emotional challenges, strive for the light, tune into the lessons, and disperse this insight into the world. This person may be a divine teacher in disguise. One can be very optimistic and blessed with fortuitous opportunities, but Jupiter will challenge them to be of purpose and step into the light. They will be called to engage with others and share their mental, emotional healing nourishment with the collective through words. They must teach others to break cycles of slavery and pain. There will be a lot of communication, exchange amongst or with masses, and strong internet or media presence. So looking at Frida Kahlo, she had her sun, Jupiter, Rahu in Purnavasu here. She has an insane stellium going on in her 11th house. So Frida Kahlo is a renowned Mexican painter, feminist icon, political activist known for her vivid self-portraits, where she explores identity, the human body, and suffering. She had a severe bus accident at the age of 18 that gave her chronic pain. Illness and chronic pain was common in her family. She had a complicated marriage, a trauma bond to Diego Rivera. They divorced and remarried Purnavasu within, months or a year. With him, she shared a passion for art and communist ideals. She was more famous in the US and Europe during her lifetime. Her father was German, but he created a Mexican persona. I think her mother was more of the Mexican background here. So she traveled for exhibitions, Purnavasu, US, New York, San Francisco, and France. And she traveled for medical procedures. So that definitely feels like a Gemini energy, like shorter, distant travels. But there's foreign lands influence that could be like Pisces or 12th house energy. Sometimes, 9th house too, right? Foreign lands where we're going to different places and spaces. So Frida actually wrote letters and poems and journaled in her diary. Her last journal entry was days before her death. She wrote, "I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope to never return." Isn't that crazy? That's her last journal entry, says, "I hope to never return." She said hope and return, so that's Purnavasu. Now, Frida had a lot of unresolved energy. Let's just express it like that. If you look at her chart, she's got Pluto at the lowest degree, so that's kind of like strong need for like transformation. And this is influencing her Venus, her Neptune, her Sun, and her Jupiter in her chart. So very heavy load of like needing to transform and go through these deeply spiritual experiences, Rahu, Mercury in the 12th house in Cancer, in order to find something here. She felt a connection to death. She's got Saturn and Pisces in the 8th house, and she's got, that Rahu in Cancer in the 12th. So she felt a connection to death and the afterlife, for sure. And she used the word joyful, Purnavasu. So it's like, that's an interesting choice of words, right? Exit. But her chart pretty much speaks for itself. She actually did a painting called Without Hope. It was called Without Hope in 1945. And in this painting is depicting her bedridden, where she had to be force-fed pureed food every 2 hours. And she thought it was disgusting. She's like, this is the grossest thing. But they put her on some sort of fattening diet. And back then, people didn't eat the way we eat now, so I'm sure they used some raw materials to feed her. Poor Frida. So she was described as having an optimistic point of view or perspective. But again, here, Purnavasu doesn't grant someone like an easy life. See, this is where we're getting it confused, because we're thinking, it's exalted, it's in its own nakshatra, surely it's going to be a great time. No, it doesn't mean it's going to be a great time, because Purnavasu, especially with Jupiter is about lessons. So it's like, you need to learn these lessons. You're here to learn this dharmic lessons. But in order to take on the dharma, you got to go through the karma. So you got to go through the pain you're holding onto. You're going to have to develop optimism. Well, the people who have to develop optimism are the people who go through the most tragic, heartbroken, disappointing experiences in life and still have somewhat of a optimistic persona. And you're looking at them, why are you so optimistic? Well, I had to learn how to be optimistic here. I had to learn how to keep going on and not be depressed. And because of that, she has an enormous reputation today. She's an inspiration for hope for many people because she pushed through that pain, where she had sickness and illness and was, rendered incapacitated for periods of time in her life. And she was in pain, but she tried to keep living and going on. But there's some deeper there's some cycles she had inherited through the family that she was processing too. Because her family had a lot of illness issues too. They had issues around money. And so she relived a lot of these same karmas in her adult life and with her husband. Okay, so we got Jupiter and Purnavasu, Kurt Cobain. So he has just Jupiter, and he has it actually in the Cancer side. So we have someone with, like, supposedly an exalted position. He's got a retrograde going on there. So Kurt has his moon in Ardra and an exalted Jupiter in Purnavasu. So he has both the storm and the after storm. His relationship with his mother was very complex. He experienced neglect. He also experienced nurturance. So she was both a nurturer and neglector in his life. His father also was not present. So he had to learn, karmically, he had to learn a lot about detachment and letting go. So he was left homeless at a time. So there's that Purnavasu, having a home, not having a home. You know, we got it in the 12th house of solitude, isolation. Now, on a lower level, it'll look more physical. On a higher level, it'll be more psychological. So it's both for him. He's experiencing it psychologically and physically because there's younger souls need to learn lessons on the physical until they realize it's consciousness that's creating it, right? Okay. So he tried to overdose, but he ended up ending his life with a gun at the age of 26. So he wasn't even 30. His music was focused around authenticity and angst. One of his quotes was, "I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not." So there's that authenticity. Purnavasu, he was trying to be optimistic. He was trying to follow his heart and process all of what he went through. But I wrote here, Jupiter in the 12th is a channeler of creative gifts. He learned his songs through memorization. 8th house, he channeled psychic collective subconscious, Venus, Saturn, and Pisces. But Saturn is creating that pressure, and you got to transform on top of that. So a lot of chaotic energy, but really great for soul growth. He predicted the future. He predicted that people would listen to music produced by technological gadgets and become slaves to it. So that's the Ardra energy with his moon. He was deeply unhappy, though. So his sun in Aquarius is in detriment in a debilitated house. It's in the 7th house. Sun doesn't want to be in a house. It's very unhappy. It wants to be in a house where it can focus more on its individuality and less on what people think. So this leads to a lot of pessimism on his part. You know, you got Saturn in the 8th house there. Pisces energy, he's feeling all the emotions. It's a lot. He's processing a lot of emotions, which is why a lot of people could relate to him because he was feeling a lot of that collective pain. But yeah, so it created a lot of pessimism in him. In his music was a lot of pessimism. But there's also, you know, he was advocating for people. He was advocating for people to find themselves, to free themselves in a way, to liberate themselves. You know, he had some interest in that higher thought. He was part of a band called Nirvana, which is about seeking bliss, right? It's at the highest state of consciousness. Well, it's not the highest, but it's higher state of consciousness. So he wanted that, but he couldn't get it officially, so he tried to get it artificially through drugs. So that would be my argument with Kurt. I'd be like, okay, well, you're complaining about the technological gadgets which I use to make music, which, you know, I don't care. I don't really have a judgment about that. I feel like make music however you want to make music. But I'm like, but you're using drugs to feel good instead of letting your body heal naturally on its own. So that 7th house gave him massive mass appeal and attraction to the collective and a lot of other people. That was a lot of pressure for him too, is like some part of him felt like he needed to be liked by people. So one of his quotes here is, "If you die, you are completely happy and your soul somewhere lives on. I'm not afraid of dying. Total peace after death. Becoming someone else is the best hope I have." Jupiter and Purnavasu in 12th house. So he talked about death quite comfortably. That's more of an 8th house thing. 12th house is liberation. So that's about totally dissolving all the illusions, including death. Like death is an illusion too. 8th house is more of the death house. Frida Kahlo had that connection too with that. She has a Saturn in Pisces just like him. Hers is at 4 degrees and his at 5. Connections. It always blows my mind when things like that happen. I'm like, oh, And he also has that 8th, 12th house energy. So he talked about death in his music at times too. So he had knowledge of cycles and reincarnation. He obviously dove into some sort of Eastern thought, but he couldn't fully get into it. It was more intellectual as opposed to applied knowledge, where he was exercising this understanding and transcending himself and liberating from the human rebirth or through consciousness. That's what Jupiter and Purnavasu in 12th house was trying to teach him. But again, at a younger soul, you're going to get more surface level information. And then if you rise in your levels of consciousness through your willpower, like resisting fame, resisting angry actions, impulsive choices, then your soul is going to have more of a larger say in your life than your ego. So his ego was still running his life. That's why he was very pessimistic. So he's called the voice of Generation X. His dharma was to be a voice for humanity, literally be a voice for humanity, but the pessimism supported an unhappy consciousness, as Michio Kushi talked about. So it's your choice, whether you want to be happy or not, that's your choice, that's on you. And if we blame it on something else like systems, like he talked about systems and being angry at this, things outside of himself. There was some level of self-awareness, but if he had taken on the full self-awareness, which I think he was trying to, because usually when people want to end their lives, it's because they feel guilty. Like they feel the darkness in them and they want to get rid of it. But we don't get rid of it through harming ourselves. That doesn't do anything. You purify through consciousness. It's always consciousness. You got to sit with it and you got to let it purify on its own. So last person we have here is George Harrison, who is also an Aquarius, like Kurt. He has a Jupiter in Purnavasu as well, in the Gemini side. So George Harrison is a Beatle global star, found fame as a musician and a singer-songwriter. He was left wanting more after fame. He said this. So he got the fame just like Kurt. His was actually longer and more massive, but he's like, this isn't it. He was doing drugs too, did cocaine and LSD, and he wasn't happy still. So he realized he wanted more. He wasn't happy after he got everything he wanted. And so he then sought Eastern thought. Now he has a bit of that supportive Jupiter in the 9th house. It's quite nice. Jupiter in 12th house is almost a loss. So, Kurt, he got sort of the fame, the blessings, he got all these things. He's got a lot going on in his chart too that allowed that to happen. But at the same time, it was like there was so much dissolution happening in his life with that Jupiter in the 12th house. That's dissolution. So even there, on a surface matrix level, people say that Jupiter is about blessings and giving you abundance, like wealth. But the true wealth in a 12th house, you dissolve the physical. So in a 12th house, a planet is more operating on a spiritual level. On a spiritual level, Jupiter is a wealth of knowledge. Wealth of knowledge. Not a wealth of things. So if he had leaned more into that, he might have really felt connected to his Jupiter in Purnavasu and would have been able to activate the fruits of it. So George Harrison, after he realized he wasn't happy, he started to seek out Eastern thought. He would meditate for hours. People said he would meditate for hours. He would say the most insightful things, and then he would go party and do drugs. So there was just a lack of inherent discipline. He ended up passing away before he was 60, I think, from health complications, from his, choices in his lifestyle. Whereas someone like Michio Kushi is trying to live a very disciplined life, and even though he had pancreatic cancer, he lived to 88. So it does affect you. We got to really think about what we put into our body. So George wrote a couple of songs I'm going to read the lyrics for, and then we're going to end this video. So though George struggled with his own, you could say demons, just like Kurt and Frida Kahlo, he still managed to spread his light. So every single one of these people did participate majorly in their dharma, did inspire people, and help to bring some sort of light. So here are the lyrics for Here Comes the Sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right, little darling. It's been a long, cold, lonely winter, little darling. It's a long, cold, lonely winter. That's Saturn, Aquarius, for George. It feels like years since it's been... Oh, I just noticed he has Saturn in 8th house too. Okay, weird. It feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. So that means like feeling like your light is going out. So he wrote this. And I say it's all right. So that's saying it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Little darling. The smiles returning to the faces. So return. Little darling. It seems like years since it's been here. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun. And I say it's all right. So that clear is also referencing clarity, thinking clearly. When we think clearly, we feel and we see the sun more clearly than we did before. I'm going to read one more song, lyrics. Give me love, give me love, give me peace on earth. Give me light, give me life, keep me free from birth. Give me hope, help me cope with this heavy load, trying to touch and reach you with heart and soul. My Lord, please take hold of my hand that I might understand you. Won't you please, oh, won't you? Give me love, give me peace on earth. Give me light, give me life, keep me free from birth. Give me hope, help me cope with this heavy load, trying to touch and reach you with my heart and soul. My Lord. Okay. So that is basically a divine channeling prayer right there. I've heard those exact same messages from divine, and in songs I've written where I'm just, whenever I'm struggling through my stuff, I sing a song to help me process it. And the answer is always, I'm here. I'm here. I'm always here. So I'm going to leave with that. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation of Purnavasu. It was very thorough, and I wanted to get it all done in one shot because I have a lot of editing to do now throughout the week, and I gotta move forward and onto other projects. So look forward for the Moon series. I'm in a transition travels going on myself, so it might take me a little bit longer to complete it, but just hit that like and subscribe to support. That way you also get the notifications for when these videos drop, and we will discuss more in depth all of these concepts. I had a wonderful time doing research about Purnavasu. I actually have it in my D10 chart, 2 places, and it makes sense. I also have a Jupiter, Moon, Mercury conjunction in one of my charts, and I've never cared to dive into this nakshatra before, just because I was trying to learn my initial birth chart nakshatras first. But I can see how this energy is mirrored in my other charts in different ways through conjunctions or house placements. There's a fusion of energy there. But by the end of the day, you know, we are here experiencing this Jupiter and Purnavasu transit at this point in time when I'm sharing this video. And this is the time for the light to return. And I want to make a final note is when the light returns, it returns to the eyes. Right? So when the light returns, it returns to the eyes. That's how you know when someone's feeling more connected and more alive. So let the light return to your eyes, and that means you're seeing clearly, and that means you are yourself realizing you are full of light, and you are projecting this out into the world, and now the world is looking like a protective, divinely loving, bright hologram that you get to enjoy and experience and be nourished in. I hope you have a beautiful one. I will see you guys next time. Bye.